Thank you for being here today. My name is Om Patel.
Myself, Vishwa Rawal.
My name is Krishnu Nagaria.
My name is Sid Patel.
Let's start with the introduction. We are presenting on behalf of Renters Voice of Australia, a charity that works to give a renter strong voice. Their goal is to make a housing safe, fair, and affordable by sharing the real experience of everyday renters. For too long, renters have not been heard in a housing debates. Their struggles are often seen as a personal problem instead of a part of a bigger issue. But the rental crisis affects millions of people, families choosing between rent and food, students packed into small spaces, and workers living with the fear of eviction. This is not just but about money and supply and demand. It's about a basic dignity. When people are stuck in a moldy homes, when repair get ignored, and when rent keep rising faster than a wages. It's not a just housing issue, it's a human crisis. In this presentation, we will share the main finding from our research. First, the number of that show the scale of the crisis, then the story that bring those number to life. Finally, we will finish with recommendation and a call to action, showing how this evidence can help drive real change. Now I will pass this conversation to Vishwa.
Thank you. Let's begin with the quantitative insights or what the number tell about the crisis. After cleaning and analyzing 49 cases, three dominant themes emerged. The largest, representing 42.9% of the cases, was unlivable, and then the neglected. Now, I will start talking about the three phases of the crisis. These are renter describing home plagued by mold, pest, structural damage, and landlord who refuse to act. Imagine raising a child in a home where mushrooms literally grow out of the bathroom floor. These are not isolated incident, part of the widespread pattern. Severe affordability and supply shortage accounted for 34.7% of the cost. Here, we see the reality of skyrocketing the rents, bidding war, and long queues at the inspection. In Sydney, we found out the report of 150 people competing for a single rental property. This isn't functioning housing marketing, it's a pressure cooker pushing people into financial, emotional disgrace. The three theme exploitation and power imbalance represent 16.3% of the cases. These stories reveal how vulnerable rental feels the landlord agent hold the disappropriate power. Tenant afraid to ask for the repair for the fear of a rent hike, or eviction migrant facing discriminatory application processes and scam that exploit people desperation. If you live in the city, you may be priced out. If you live in the country, you may be entered substantially unsafe housing with a little recourse. To capture this duality, we create a storytelling image. On the way, we show the urban signature, endless queues, bidding war, and economic pressure. The crackdown the middle symbolize a call to action. The both crises are the symptom of the same broken system. Together, this number visualize tell this is not a dimensional issue, it is a nationwide crisis that manifests different depending on where you live, but wherever it represents a failure to provide a safe and dignified houses. Now, Krish will start talking about two crises of the geographic divide.
Thank you, Vishwa. While the number are powerful, they only tell half the story. To truly understand the rental crisis, we must go beyond statistics and listen to the people living through it. Our qualitative research uncovered a raw emotional landscape. Renters spoke of anger at being ignored, fear of eviction, desperation in the face of rising rent, and anxiety about the future. Words that dominate their story would mold, fear, separate, and even scams. These are not abstract concepts, they are lived realities. And yet, with this hardship, we also found realization. Many renters cope using dark humor and sarcasm, almost a several mechanism. So, the next slide is the emotional soul print of the crisis. Consider this quote: every inspection feels like an auction for survival. In the eighth word, it captures about the unaffordability of the market and the emotional toll of competing against dozens of others for a single property. Another renter showing visitor their mold infested home said, "Don't look up, the mold will make you sick." This single line tells us everything we need to know about the health risk and despair rents feel when they're forced to live in unsafe condition. These soul prints are the more antidote. They are emotional heartbeat of the crisis. They transfer statistics into urgency rental. Are not losing money. They are losing health, safety, and dignity. Now we'll go to the another slide telling us about the visualizing the divide our storytelling image. From a marketing perspective, this insight are crucial. They tell us exactly who we need to speak to and how we need to speak to them. First one is target audience. Our finding highlights two key groups. First, the separate renter themselves. We need to feel seen and hear the second wider public who, when it exposed to these stories, often feel shock, empathy, and even anger on half of other. Campaign must be engaged both groups simultaneously. Second one is value proposition. Renter voice stands as an advocate, a protector, and a unifier. We give renter the power to hear and push for policies that create safer, fairer, and more affordable homes. Third and the last one is brand storytelling and emotional appeal. Our research showed that the campaign should lean into authenticity, raw narrative, the unfiltered language, the humor, and the pain. These are what makes the crisis feel audience number might inform, but story inspire action. So now I'll pass on to the Sid Patel telling us about the strategic recommendation, the hidden crisis campaign.
Finally, how do we respond? What can Renters Voice Australia do with these findings to bring about meaningful change? So, we have three clear recommendations. First, launch the Hidden Crisis campaign. Too often, the rental crisis is framed only as an affordability issue, but our data shows that unlivable conditions are just as widespread and damaging. This campaign would use tenant quotes, photos, and our storytelling image to reframe the crisis as a health and safety emergency. The goal is to embrace negligent landlords, pressure policymakers, and highlight that substandard housing is unacceptable. Now, the second recommendation is adopt a place-based advocacy approach. The data tell us that cities and region faces different crises. In city, the priority is supply. Renters' voice can lobby for build-to-rent incentives and zoning reforms in regional areas. The priority is quality. Here we recommended a report or repair hotline and legal aid services to empower tenants. The tailored strategy ensures resources are used effectively, targeting the most urgent needs in each community. The next third recommendation is amplify renters' voices and empower the directly. Host press conference where anonymized tenants share their stories publicly. Develop a digital know your rights toolkit so renter can demand repairs without fear of retaliation. Use these voices and tools in formal submissions to government inquiries, making it impossible for policymakers to ignore the scale of the crisis. Now I'm requesting to Om Patel to take over the conclusion.
In conclusion, the Australian rental crisis is not just a housing issue, it is a crisis of a human dignity. Renter Voice Australian is has the evidence, the stories and the strategies to lead the fight for a safe, fair and affordable homes, but change will only come if we act together as tenant advocates and communities. The time or change is not a tomorrow, it is today. Let's turn frustration into momentum and momentum into meaningful action. Thank you.